Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another edition of the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson, your host from Villanova University, and my partner, as always, is the good doctor, Dr. Sonny Sparrow. How are you?
Chuck, I'm great, man. Looking forward to today. Should be
Yeah,
fun.
well, listen, I haven't talked to you in a few minutes. You had your boys down the shore this weekend, right?
We
You had
did.
you had some of your Syracuse boys down there. How's that? How are everybody doing?
Well, the first line of the conversation is what body part is either hurting or been replaced?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
It's like,
listen,
oh
I'm
my, I need a
I'm in
new
that
knee, I
I'm in
need a
that
new
fence.
hip.
I'm in that category, you know. So who was all down with you? Was Raph did
Okay,
Raph
so we
come
had
down?
Howard and his wife. He's
Yeah.
he's he's guaranteed. Then Wendell and his wife came down, and Chris Lewis and his wife came down. That was the first
Nice.
for Chris. And Dave Cerroti. And Raph got hung up. He was supposed to join us. He didn't make it.
Okay. Well,
So
Wendell was down there. Good. Good to see
Wendell was, yeah, it was a good
the
time.
SU Orangemen are fully intact. I like to see that, Sonny. You know that.
Trying to catch up on my sleep now, man.
Yeah, well, yeah, I bet. That's always like that when you get together with your teammates, you know. And we have a big event coming up in a week too down at school, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We should have probably right around 120 former players at Summer Jam. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to have a lot of fun right now because our guest today, Sonny, is a Renaissance man. The guy has done everything. He started out, he was a coach at Riverside Church and coached some of the best basketball players in New York City on those teams. We're going to talk to him a little bit about that. He was an assistant coach at St. John's, a grad assistant, and he worked his way up the food chain to director of basketball ops and associate athletic director. He also works with Hawk Films and was involved. In fact, you could see in the background. He doesn't want me to
I
say
was
this,
gonna
but
say,
that's
I
okay.
was gonna say, if
In
you're
the
not
background,
watching
buddy,
this,
three Emmys sitting back there.
right?
That
If
that
if you're
trumps
not
anything
watching
in
this
my
show and
office.
you're listening to it, there are
Trumps
three
anything in my
Emmys
office, Sonny.
right
So,
over his left
and one
shoulder.
of them was for Survive and Advance, the great 30 for 30 on the NC State team, championship team with Jimmy Valvano, and of course Derek Wittenberg co-produced that with him. And he's also involved with Fit Biomix, and we're going to talk about that later today too. He's one of the guys that played at St. John's came up with this, and it's really, really good for gut health, especially for athletes. So, of which you and I are no longer, Sonny. I'm
Yeah,
sorry to
we don't
break that
qualify.
news to
We
you.
got
We're
caught.
not,
I
we're
definitely
not,
found
we
out.
don't
I
fall
was
in that
reminded
category
again.
any longer. That's all I'm
I
saying.
was
So,
reminded again this weekend.
so without any further ado, here he is, Alex Evans from St. John's University. How are you, Alex? Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. What you guys do is great. I've heard from many of the people who've been on how much fun they have, how much they like it, and I mean, for all of us, I mean, the Big East, especially, we rewind it, and it's there's incredible memories, and I mean, college basketball and the sport wouldn't be where it is in 2025 if what hadn't happened in the Big East in the 80s, into the 90s, and so forth. I mean, it kind of jump starts everything. Is how I
Yeah,
always felt about it.
yeah,
But I'm biased.
everybody talks about that period of time, in the Big East tournament, and even to this day, I mean, people of a certain age now, Alex, I mean, they all are talking about that type of stuff. And back then it was exciting basketball. We had so many great players in the conference back then. It was always fun, especially when you got to the Garden at the end of the season for the Big East tournament. There was nothing better than that. This whole city was electric, and everybody had a good time with that. So, um, so I
It
have
was
to start off. I
incredible,
got to
incredible
ask you
time.
something. How were you on the debate team as a kid in high school? Was that something that you were a part of?
That's actually true.
So I know a little bit of
Wait,
your
wait, just
background.
just wait, wait. We do our research. We are
We are
professional people.
professional journalists, right, Sonny? Tell them.
Yes. I just want to throw it out there.
It's not like we just turn this on, Alex,
Yeah,
and
it's not
go
like we
up.
turn
So
on the mics and roll.
so here's the thing. So when I grew up in East Harlem on 116th Street off
Right.
of First Avenue, the same neighborhood that is famous for Patsy's Pizza,
Yep.
Rayo's. Actually, the street's named after my grandfather all these years later, Pete Pascal Place, because he was a key community member in the city in the area for help, for community centers and doing a lot for families and immigrants and so forth. But the reason I tell you all that is so I would go to Patsy's since I was can remember, and cold brick oven pizza and everything. So one time, a bunch of the managers at St. John's basketball team were like, we want to go to Patsy's, and what not many people knew is that there's other rooms. Now it's more, maybe in 2025 it's different, but so I knew where to go. You just walk in somewhere else and you get pizza, what have you. And we're sitting there and they're all amazed at like all these characters I know from East Harlem in that area. And someone walks by the door, passes, doesn't tell them, turns back and just yells out, "Hey, Alex Evans, Bronx Science debate team." And all of them break up. They're like, "What? What did he just say?" They're like, "You were a nerd in high school on a debate team of Bronx Science?" I'm like,
Well,
I can't believe I got outed in East Harlem.
and I know they had to torture you for that, I'm sure.
Oh, I
'Cause
got torched.
part of
I
our
still get
team
I
forget
still
about
get that joke from Alex Perez and Brian Crimmins.
So that being said, do you still have some of your debate skills? Because I ask you that because Sonny fancies himself as a master debater, okay? And he knows all about the Italian heritage, the topics that go along with that. He's an expert in The Godfather. Yeah, and you're a cinematographer, you're involved with that type of stuff. I would love to see a 2-minute face-off between our champ Sonny Sparrow, who, by the way, beat Mike Vaccaro, who fancies himself from the New York Post, fancies himself to be an expert on the Godfather movie. And so it is The Godfather. The topic is you get 2 minutes total. We're not gonna bore everybody to tears. Okay. So the topic is The Godfather. Is it cinematic perfection? Is it the best movie ever made? Or is it in the top 3? Or is it not even in the top 10? Okay. So Sonny, do you want the pro or the con?
I'll let the professional debater go first.
No,
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm retired. That was a long time ago. And I'll tell you another joke about that was my New York accent was so thick then
Right.
that when we competed in the tri-state area, I was very successful. When we went outside the tri-state area, they started joking and they said, "Everyone says you sound like you're some wise guy. They think you're something from The Godfather. They think you're someone that's selling cars," which if you think about in 2025, I could have made a case out of that and of that stereotypical comedy, but I found it amusing. So so I'll never forget the coach goes, "No one wants to debate you within the tri-state area. You're fair game in every other 47 states," they said.
They, they were afraid of you in the tri-state, That's it.
It was funny.
So,
You remind me of that. So no. So you go with what you believe about the film, and then I'll go the other. I'll
all right.
counterpoint it.
So the choice is it one of the best films ever, most perfect films ever made? I'm going to say
Right.
yes. I'm going to say yes, it
Good
was.
topic, Sonny.
That's the topic. Okay. So my point to prove it. Okay. So I think the continuity of the show and the characters from start to finish was really unparalleled. There were so many little subtle things that tied in that were important to the overall theme as well as the overall message. Because when all is said and done, it was about family. It really wasn't about mob this, mob that. It really was about the family unit and the hierarchy that exists in many families. And I think when he put it all together, when all was said and done, one of the most perfect films made.
Okay. Well
I
done.
have to agree. You won.
That's not how they roll in New York.
Know when to say when, Alex. That's good.
Absolutely. But you know what I'll say? I'll say that what to me, I think the film ages better than people realize. And I say that because there's a point when I think he said when Don Vito Corleone talks of Michael and he says, "I want you to be Senator Corleone," right? And in the 1970s and 80s, people interpreted that as, "I want you to go straight." I say, if you look at how much money the politicians are making, and some people say that the politicians make legally in this day and age, the film was somewhat prescient in that he realized that the future was to become legitimate and to be in a different side because he foresaw that all the laws of what was considered to be illegal would become co-opted into other parts of society. And he actually foresaw where the profitable place to be in the family would be down the road. And then now I'm going to get into the area that is always contentious. Godfather 3, which is not the same as Godfather's the first two films in terms of the cinematic ability and in terms of the entire film and so forth. There are certain things in it that make more sense in 2025 than people thought of when it took place then. For example, he's gone legit. He runs a foundation. He's brokering everything through the foundation. There are so many things that his character is doing then that we can easily affix to real world events in the past 10 or 15 years. So again, Coppola and Puzo clearly had a vision of where they thought the world was going. And that stuff, I don't think gets discussed enough about the film, especially when you look back at it in hindsight.
Plus, he could help get players at St. John's at that point. He's got the thing, you know.
That's it.
I think
with NIL, it doesn't matter.
There you
It doesn't. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, I think Alex wins because he used the word prescient, and without being able to look it up.
Listen, I'm glad you're
wins.
conceding because I thought it was a blowout, Sonny. Not for anything. He does still have his skills.
Well, I hope I used the word correctly. I need my.
I have no idea. I've never heard of it. Yes.
Listen, don't blow it, Alex. You already won. Don't even.
No.
Say that
I'm
you
curious, Sonny. What do you think of the
neither
third
of us
film?
know. That's the answer. No, neither of us had an idea if you're using it correctly or not.
I thought we're going to talk about the third film. I thought the third film was hurt by not having Duvall in it. That was not a smooth transition. George Hamilton is not Duvall. He can't carry his gym bag.
Yes.
And I thought a couple other character choices were harder to believe.
Yeah.
I think that hurt the overall makeup, and I think it got too complicated.
Yeah, I have this discussion when this is like a regular point that because I know everyone loves the film, and I bring this up. And the other thing is, and we've gone over time in terms of this segment, but the reality is, I got to see the recut that he did for the anniversary, and he repositioned a few things and took some scenes out. And some of those issues that you speak of are not as prevalent in that viewing. Now, again, it's not in the category or class. It shouldn't even be discussed with the other two. But I always like to, someone that enjoys the first few films, I always like to bring it up because there are certain things I find remarkable, as I said, about the structure, not the structure, the story and concepts. And I just love that he goes back to Sicily.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have
Chuck,
it.
what's your favorite movie of all time?
I like The Godfather. I'm a Godfather fan, not to the point where Sonny is. Sonny must have seen it. You know, he's named after the guy that gets shot up at the toll booth, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, Santino.
Yeah, Sonny Santino, right. So, you know, listen, I like a lot of different stuff.
He never could have taken Never could have taken Sonny.
So let's get into this thing now, Alex. So how did you go and get involved? Talk to me about how you got involved, first of all, with Riverside Church, because that fascinates me. You know, the AAU circuit got hot probably right after Sonny and I got out of high school, and then it really started to explode. And the two teams in New York City, and we've talked about this before, were Riverside Church and, of course, the Gauchos. They seem to have all the best players in the city playing for either of those two teams. So talk about that, because I know Malik was on your team. I know Sean L. Scott was on your team. I know
Adrian.
And Adrian Autry. And you know, that to me, I don't know how you even lost the game with some of these guys that you had. I mean,
because some of the other teams had David Kane, Jamal Mashburn.
Well, there you go.
Eric Mobley, rest in peace, and a lot of I mean, it was great games and great memories. I was coaching while in college at New York University, and LaGuardia House was the community center that I mentioned. My grandfather, that it was known as the Harlem House. It was named after LaGuardia, was the congressman before he became mayor of that area. And my grandfather was one of kind of like the LaGuardia disciples, so to speak. Anyway, coaching there, I learned about, hey, maybe if you could become a graduate assistant, you could pay for graduate school. And I had the opportunity to go to coach at Riverside Church with the understanding, like the idea was that, hey, when I graduate college, maybe I can get a graduate assistant's opportunity, just, you know, as a way to pay for grad school. I didn't ever envision that opportunity would be as Coach Carnesecca's graduate assistant coach, which, it sounds like that then, but today you're one of the 4 assistant coaches. That's the bottom line, right? And back then they had so many restrictions on how many coaches. It's crazy when you think back. Now the assistants have assistants who have assistants. And
Yeah.
that's how I got there. And when I was there, Malik was there, and then Chanel Scott came over, Adrian Autry was there, Brian Reese. Those guys were already in the program. I just happened to have the opportunity to be there and coach. And they always joke years later that it's funny when you're younger, the age gaps seem greater than when you're older, right? Like you're like basically the same age as us. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was in college and you were in high school. I mean, what's the difference? It's not big a difference, but it seems massive, when you're that age. But yeah, Malik was unbelievable.
Yeah, and Adrian, we had him on,
Yeah.
Alex, and we had Shawnell on as well. And
Yes.
Adrian, Shawnell told us that he was playing with 17-year-olds at 13 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the parks and stuff. He was on the big boys court, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's something to be said about this. We've talked about this. I know you're a big hoops guy from back in the day, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Nowadays, they don't play in the park like they used to. All right. So
No.
you got kids that go to trainers that do individual moves, etc. But you don't learn the basketball and life lessons that you learn in the park. And one of those is, waiting your turn, respecting
Right.
your older guys,
Right.
learning how to play hard because you want to win the game so you could stay on for another game and not
Right.
have to sit down for an hour or a half hour,
Right.
depending on who's in the
Right.
park. Talk
Right.
about those things. I mean, when you were coaching these guys were all park players. I know they were. So these guys played all the time, and that's
They
why they
played
were
all the
so
time. Yeah.
good.
No. And they had intense games in practice.
Yeah.
Sometimes different teams played each other, and they had great tournaments against, the Riverside Gaucho games were great, but the Madison Square Broncos were great, and eventually the Roadrunners were great. Eventually you get the team, more and more teams from Long Island. But to your point, I mean, it's the ultimate meritocracy, and you learn early on that you have to find a way to win games, or else you sit. And if you love to play, you don't want to sit. And that competitive landscape, that was part of, but what was fun was natural to every player. And we left out, like, on these teams, like, think of how many coaches, right? So Brian Reese is coaching, Michael Uger, who was the head coach at Bowling Green, who was the assistant at Temple now, was
Right.
on this team. Lawrence Pollard, who's won multiple city championships at Jefferson in the PSAL. It's amazing. I look back and how much of many of these guys that were on those Riverside teams went on to be coaches. I know I've left off people, and I apologize, but it is pretty amazing.
Well, a lot of that is the effect that you had on these guys. I talked to Sean for a while. He is blown away about the relationship that you guys still have. You may not talk every day, but he puts you up as one of his mentors that really, really affected him, not only on the basketball court, but in life. I mean, that's
It's
got to
great
make
to
you
hear.
feel
I
good,
appreciate. No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and all of us were a close group, and then it's even closer. We all, especially when Malik's at St. John's, then Chanel, and that as you guys know, I mean, your team group
Yeah.
is yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, how did you get the basketball bug? What was it that just grabbed you about the game?
Well, my grandfather, not only, again, my grandfather was, community activist. I mean, a community organizer, person of the people, but he was a coach. He was a baseball umpire at one point, a baseball coach, basketball coach. So I was around him. And my father also played. My father, the irony is that, I was actually, some people know, okay, Coach Carnesecca used to always joke, don't let the Evans name fool you. He's a half. I knew his grandfather from us growing up in East Harlem. And that's Pascali. However, my father's family, Evans, came pre-Gold Rush and went west. And he's from there, and he came east and met my mom. But the thing is that they were cowboys. But the real funny thing is he grew up in Nevada. So Chanel Scott and a guy by the name of John Strickland, he's like a playground legend in the franchise, they would be all the time. They would mess with my father, Dan. They would say, Dan, you grew up in Nevada. Why didn't you go to UNLV? And one day he goes, because it didn't exist yet. That's how old I am. I went to Stanford instead.
Funny.
And he played for Everdeen, the Hall of Fame coach, and he played with George Arley. And so basketball was always around. So I think it was in the DNA.
Yeah. So how did you make your way over to St. John's? How did that take us through that and how you got
There
involved?
was a position opening, and Ron Rutledge thought, Alex would be a good, I would be, he said to them, Alex would be, and Coach said, I know him, his family from years back, so that made him very, very comfortable. And I had already met him a couple of times as older, so to speak, but
Right.
so that all worked out. Although Rutledge used to always mess with me because Kenny Eggman Williamson used to call me the old glad ass. I'm glad to have a job. So they would nickname, they always would call me old glad ass instead of grad assistant for a while there.
Yeah. Ron was everywhere. That guy was a road warrior. Every time I went to a game or played in the game, Ron Rutledge was there, and and when were you able, as the grad assistant, you weren't able to go on the road at that point,
No,
right?
so yeah, I was not. Yeah, so after being around millions of games all the time, now I just was confined to being on campus. But you
So,
mentioned Ron Rutledge and recruiting. He always tells the story of the first time he took Coach Carnesecca to see Walter Berry play,
oh,
and he makes an incredible play, and Coach goes, "Oh my!" and he grabs Rutledge like by the arm and starts shaking him. He goes, "We have to have him." He goes, "You can't leave." And he goes, Alex, I didn't. He goes, I stayed in Texas for 3 months until Walter committed.
and that's right. That's
I
true.
didn't come home for 3 months.
Walt told us that too. That's true. I mean, like I said, but that's more committed than any coach that I've seen in a long time. So
You mentioned Walter, right? You
yeah,
know what's amazing about Walter? First of all, it's great. You talk to a lot of people, then you hear the stories and you realize the stories all add up. Walter Berry has stories, and I don't know if he told you guys them, but the things that he accomplished in Europe are amazing because I've heard the stories from
yeah,
everyone other than Walter. In other words, I heard from the people they played against and the people that coached and the people that own the teams, the fans and all
Right.
that. And like Walter's very modest about it. So one day
very.
I was like,
Yeah,
Walter,
he
yeah, well,
is.
this stuff is true. He's like, yeah, I know. I go, but you didn't even have to tell me. I had to find out from someone else. Crazy stories,
Yeah,
crazy
He's
stories.
he would never
he's
talk about himself like that. I mean,
borderline shy.
everybody that I
Yeah,
know that has played in the city has a Walter Berry story
yeah,
of
absolutely,
some kind of
absolutely.
damage that he inflicted on you and your team. You
Yeah,
know?
no, it's unbelievable. Coach
He
Carnesecca's
does
line,
have that little smile when he says it, though. He does have that
yeah,
little smile.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's
He
the twinkle.
knows.
There's an inner
Yeah,
confidence. There's no
He
doubt about that.
yeah.
we had him on, and we got him very comfortable because we were just talking like we are here, and he just let his guard down a little bit. He was telling all kinds of stories. It was great, to
Yeah.
Yep.
hear that from him. So
It's funny because you reminded me. So we're in Madrid on a trip. Coach took the former Malik Sealy senior team in his last year coaching. Coach took the team to Spain, and we're in Madrid. And Rutledge and I go into a restaurant, and it's pretty empty. And Rutledge is wearing the St. John's polo, and a guy walks over in an accent says, St. John's. He goes, you know Walter Berry? He goes, Bells goes, I recruited Walter Berry. He goes, you really know him? He goes, so he goes, yes. And all of a sudden, the guy goes, come here. And then he takes us to the back, and the doors open, and it's like we walked into the most busiest place in Madrid. He's like, you can come in here now. Like in the front, you would have never thought it was the place. And then we got the Walter Berry treatment.
got the Walter Berry treatment. That's great. That's great. So you've kind of been through all of the regimes. I mean, from Louis, then Mahoney took over, and then
Yeah, tell us a good
Jordan.
loose story. Tell us a
Yeah,
good
give us
loose
some
story.
loose stuff.
Well, since you mentioned the Godfather, and of course, Coach loved those films.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the show Gomorrah that is about that was made in Italy?
No.
Oh no,
No.
then because so he would watch it, and then they never aired the last two seasons in America. So
Oh,
I'd be able, because I live in Europe, I'd be able to watch it here. So I would call him and tell him what was going on because
that's
he wanted to know
hilarious.
what was happening to the immortal and to Jenny
That's
Gennaro.
that's great. I mean,
Yeah, as the stories about Coach pop out, I'll let them fly.
yeah. What, you know, obviously when he was there was at the peak of the St. John's basketball, world. Okay. They
Yeah,
they got to the Final Four
One and two in the country for most of the year.
all year
yeah,
long. I mean, that was the pinnacle of the St. John's
yeah.
basketball program.
So what's great about that year is I'm in college at New York University, and I'm at, no, wait. Yeah, I'm a freshman in college at that point. So the thing is that what's amazing to me is I got to see it external. And then I come a few years later to St. John's and I see it internally. And what's interesting is I tell people this all the time. That team, but more so Coach Carnesecca over his career, may have had the greatest influence on the game of basketball globally
Yeah.
than any team or coach. Now, this could be debated, but the thing is this, because of my background and he and I coming from the same background and knowing what went into that as it related to people of my family and his age group and what they dealt with in terms of discrimination, in terms of language barriers, in terms of being one of the few major groups that were non-English speaking to start with, he was, and then coach would go back and forth as a child to Italy and America. So he was always, he was American in Italy and he was greaseball in New York. So he was neither home and always home. And I'm getting at is, so what I got to see firsthand is how much of a role he played in the international game, because he's the only one that's talking to other coaches in their native language, because he would speak Spanish, Italian, and French and Portuguese. Now he was very modest about his French, and his Portuguese, but I heard him do it. And the thing is that, so now he's teaching the game from a cultural point of view that they can relate to. He's not teaching it as two different separate entities, and he's also using terminology that they can relate to. And I echo this with, there's an Italian author who's actually writing a biography about Coach Carnesecca. And this is written, it's going to be written from the Italian perspective about how much it meant to the regions of Tuscany he came from in Italy, and the role he played in basketball globally, and the role he played in a lot of things that developed with the Italian growth of the game in the 60s as well as elsewhere. And again, and without me saying anything, he kept talking, the coaches kept talking in other languages to the author about how much of a role he played, because they felt like he was one of them and the only one they could talk to that was one of them. And and then eventually it reaches down into Eastern Europe, Africa, and South America.
Have you ever heard an unsavory or coarse or even off book comment about Coach Carnesecca? I of all the people we spoke to, there's a sincere love of him across the board.
Yeah.
His competitors, the people he faced, people that maybe he didn't see eye to eye, even just the way he would mention things. Truly, it's kind of he never said a bad word about anybody, but have you ever come across anybody that?
No, but then again, I think anyone that knows me knows it. If they say it to me, they're going to be challenged.
That's fight words, baby. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
No, but I haven't. I have not. I have not.
I find it fascinating. The more we talk to different people, different teams, different parts of the Big East then and now, not one that doesn't smile and honestly say, great guy.
Yeah.
Across the board.
And not only that, like Coach Massimino, he loved his guys, man. I mean,
Yeah.
we were at lunch. We spoke to him in his kitchen, and then we had so much fun with him that day, Alex, that Sonny and I decided let's take him to lunch. We went to the Greek family kitchen, and we took it. And it was just us and Ron Guzes, who I know you know also.
Of course.
Right? So Ron was kind of taking care of him that day, and I said, and Ronnie Stewart and I went to high school together, but there was two different sports teams. He played at Sonderling, I played at Ross, but it was on the same campus. Okay.
Right.
So we both went to Brentwood High School, but it was two different programs. So I said, Ron, I'm going to call you when we're with Coach. He goes, oh, that would be great. So I said, hey, Coach, phone call for you. He's like, looks at me, right, Sonny? He looks at me. I go, it's your buddy, Ron Stewart. Give me that phone. He got all excited,
Yeah.
And the conversation, you couldn't hear both sides, obviously, but the conversation, from what we heard from Coach, he just was exploding with excitement that he got to talk to him.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
And Mass is the same way. I mean, he was the same way, and and they were buddies too, which was kind of cool.
No,
and,
absolutely.
So I like.
They all went on a tour together. Him.
Yeah, I heard that with Jimmy V, right? Yeah.
Now, did you when you were GA, you couldn't officially travel with the squad, or could you at that point?
No, you could travel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any interesting travel dilemmas?
Well, not with that team that comes to mind. Well, no, there was one time there was actually a really bad flight, and like it was horrible. And I sat across from Malik, and I slept through the whole thing. I only know because as we got off the plane, Malik hit me. He goes, "I'm glad you got to miss it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, we all thought we were going to die, but we were all laughing that you were sleeping the whole time."
It's the only way to go if you got to go, Alex. You
Well,
know,
yeah, that's
The
you're the one's
greatest,
going to survive.
but
right?
I'm sure
Exactly.
you heard. I'm sure you know the greatest travel story is when we played at Syracuse, and we almost got snowed out with the
No,
Felipe
didn't
Lopez
hear
Daniel
that.
Hamilton team.
You got to share that one.
Okay, so we're at the, what was it? There was that Marriott that everyone stayed at,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they still do, right? And then so the thing is, we have pregame meal, and we look out the window and it's starting to snow, and we're like, maybe we move the bus up 15 minutes because it looks bad. And we go up and come down, and it must have been like, okay, I know it wasn't a foot, but it felt like a foot had fallen already in that small amount of time. And the amount of snow that came down was crazy. And what is it? There's like a hill you have to go up at some point as you're getting closer to campus, right?
Yes, there is a
So,
steep one.
so the bus gets there and he starts to go, and then all of a sudden he starts sliding back because there was so much snow and
Yeah,
ice.
Adams Street. Yeah.
We couldn't go any further. And so we've already called them thinking we might be late in terms of warm up, right? Well, it got so bad that we were all off the bus and fans were driving by, and Felipe got into a car and Zenon got into a car. And we got there maybe an hour after. I think we got there maybe an hour after. We didn't get there an hour after tip off, but the game started an hour after tip off because we had to warm up. And it had to be a nightmare for Boeheim and those guys because there's nothing worse than being in the gym waiting for someone to show up and you don't know when you're going to start. We came off the bus, warmed up, and we had a great game and we won. And I'm sure the only reason we won was because we basically stalled the home team.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
But
when
the
you're home, you're supposed
snowstorm
to have
was
a home
crazy.
court advantage, but that takes that right away.
But the crazy thing was, I mean, there was troopers everywhere, and people are like, we got to help the bus, and we're like, but no, you can't help the bus. You got people stranded in the snow. It was bad. It was bad. It was a bad snowstorm. I
And
mean,
you think about it, do the people have to travel through that to get to a place that they can't park anywhere near, and yet fans still show up? That's
right,
still amazes me
right,
today.
yeah.
Yeah. Even if they're
That's
just
France
okay
team.
and not great, they still come out. So I
If you
have to
ever
ask
speak
you,
to Martin Newton, who's the athletic director at Stanford University, Martin was on the bus with me because with us, but we were sitting right near each other because on that trip he happened to be there because he was the head of Nike College basketball, and
okay.
Fran Fraschilla, who you've had on already, Fran was the coach. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I was going to get into that because you've seen so many different phases of the St. John's program. I think you were under what, five or six coaches, four or five coaches? Was Brian, right? It was
yeah. So it's
Coach
Coach Brian, Fran,
Brian,
Mike Jarvis, Coach Jarvis, and Coach
Oh,
Clark,
that's
who
right,
took
Mike
over for
Jarvis.
Coach Jarvis. Yeah.
right? So what were the subtle differences from each guy? So in other words, as the program changed hands, the head of the program changed. How did the team and the style of play, how did all of that change with each coach?
That's a good question. I mean, the reality is that each, like all of us, we're all different individuals. So it's a reflection of each person's personality. I mean, certain styles of play differently, certain different choices of how to use personnel. But actually, and for me, it's so long ago, it's like hard for me to differentiate.
Was the culture the same though? Because I know I talked to a lot of the St. John's guys. Went back when we were playing. The St. John's guys and the Syracuse guys were the nicest guys. So and I'm not just saying that because Sonny's my partner here with this, but we had a good time with those guys and the St. John's guys because I knew Ron as well as I did.
Right,
And then, we got to know Chris and Billy, and I knew Billy pretty well too because he played on Long Island as well. So
right.
even during the Final Four, Dwayne and Ron Stewart were tight. We went to the St. John's Hotel. They gave us a couple hours free time. and we
Right.
wound up going over to the St. John's Hotel and hanging with those guys, and we're like, but my point was, did the culture suffer by having so many change of hands, by having all those coaches in such a short period of time?
I don't know. I mean, the camaraderie between, let's say, those guys that are, Chanel and David Kane, Malik
Yeah,
Sealy, Billy Singleton, Terrence Mullen, and the rest, they kind of intertwine with each other. Now, maybe because I was around them all, I see it that way. So, like, I was in touch with everyone. So all that way through to, let's say, know, Meta and Marcus Hatton and so forth, and Felipe and Zendon in between, it kind of all, for me, it all meshed together. They also, and there were constants, right? There was constants, like for a lot of them, even, and it goes beyond that, because a lot of the constants for a lot of those guys is they would always go visit Coach Carnesecca on campus. So for years later, there was a relationship. There was like a theme running through it all.
gotcha. Um, Before we let you go off the St. John's topic, give us some good Al Lababo stories, because we've heard a bunch of them from Matty
Yeah.
Brust and Coach Lou. And
My high school coach was a disciple of Alabama.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, we went to Fairleigh Dickinson. That was the only camp that we went to that wasn't run by our high school coach. Yep. Yeah. He, every single thing. It was defense, preached it. Yeah.
No, he was the best. He was the best. I used to call him low legend. He was unbelievable. He was, yeah, it's a great person and a great coach. We, he loved to play golf, and he was great. He was like a scratch golfer. And he was so excited. We went to Madrid. He was going to play the course that Sevi Ballesteros designed. And then Carmine, who ran Dante's, was giving him a hard time revving the engine every time he was about to putt and drive. Drove him crazy the whole time.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was a really good guy.
Did Matt Brush run him over in practice?
Matt Burst put him in the third row.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But I was telling that to
He didn't run
Chanel.
him over. He bulldozed his head.
Just destroyed him. Yeah.
Destroyed him. Yeah. But that's Matt. Matt plays hard all the time. It doesn't
That's
matter.
a linebacker.
And in there. Yeah, right. So,
Coach Lowe always told me this story I found it. I mean, it's not surprising when you think about it, but like that his father and his brother were on the boat together coming from Sicily, and the father, who ends up in New Jersey and New York and all that, they separate him and the brother, and they never see each other again. They send the brother to Argentina.
wow.
His uncle. I was like,
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. We're going to move on from St. John's, but I do want to ask you about current day St. John's. Okay. I know you follow the program. You're not intimate with it anymore, but what do you think this year? I mean, they have on paper the best roster in all of college basketball. It's
Amazing.
arguably the best roster.
They've done an incredible job. They had an incredible season, did an incredible job in this past season, and now they have an incredible roster, and it's exciting. I mean, the basketball community of our group is excited and looking forward to it. I hear about it all the time.
Yeah, all the guys that played. I mean, and they do a pretty good job when they bring guys back. A lot of guys come back when they have an event or something, and they're all talking about, they're all amped up. You ask any one of them, they're all amped up about this year's team, and they should be. If it's and you have a Hall of Fame coach and you got that roster. I can't. The guy that I was shocked that they got, because it was so odd to Sonny and I, is Bryce Hopkins, who came over from Providence, right? I mean, last year they got Kadari, who came from Seton Hall. And that just didn't happen back in the day. Like, you weren't really allowed to transfer within the conference.
You had to sit 2 years.
It was a 2-year penalty.
Yeah. No, that takes some. I don't know who was. I think maybe it was Chanel. I don't know who I was talking about this with. And I said, we have to get used to what seems odd to us is commonplace for certain other groups.
Yeah.
So like the person in college today, this is normal, and to us, we're like, no, You don't change schools every year. You don't have guys. You don't transfer within conference and so on and so
You
on. And
didn't
yet,
play for 6 years either.
or 10.
Yeah, not kidding. So you move on from St. John's, and where did you go? You went into hockey. You went to
So
hockey.
what happened was, yeah, I kind of knew um, that I wanted to kind of. I got involved at the Big East at a very early age, so it kind of ran its course for me at some point. I almost the year before my last one, I almost called it and then there, and then in the middle, I'm like, you don't, you know, if a player walked in the office and said, I'm not going to finish the season, you would convince, you'd say you can't do that. So
Right.
then it turned out to be the roughest season of all time. But the reality is that in Marcus Hatton's first year at St. John's, when we went to the NCAA tournament, his junior year, we happened to do St. John's the season, and we were one of the first shows that would be reality based for a college. You know, now it's commonplace, right? So we had a behind the scenes season, which was like, you know, oh my goodness, now it's common. And the director was Jonathan Hawk, and we got, you know, we did a lot. I helped a lot with coordinating a lot of what was done for us, and we got along great. And he's like, you know, you have a good feel for this. If you're ever interested in this in doing something different, you let me know. And I did. I called his bluff, and we started working together, and he taught me the industry and taught me how it all works. And, you know, fortunately for me, a lot of my contacts in basketball and sports lended themselves to storytelling and kind of were the basis for some of the films we got to make. So for example, you know, Wittenberg, when he had the idea to say, hey, let's try and make Survive in Advance, he came to me and said, this could be really good. And I know Jonathan is great. One thing led to another, and Survive in Advance got made. Or, you know, Liz and Chris Mullen talking about the life of Chris Herron, and we made Unguarded and things of that nature, but also other things that Jonathan gave me an opportunity to be a part of with other films, such as the film about Louis Tiant and, you know, John's right-hand guy through all this, Philip Armando. They taught me how this works from a storytelling and production point of view, and gave me an incredible opportunity. And we had great memories and a lot of fun working on a lot of films. And I was fortunate, before I moved from New York to Spain, one of the last projects that we finally were going to get made was the film about Felipe Lopez, Dominican Dream. So it was kind of a great way to finish.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And, you know,
So
you guys are in production. I'll say this real quick, and you know this, and that is in content creation. What's amazing is that some of these ideas we told networks about years before. They just didn't realize it. In other words, we wanted to do a film about CM Newton years before we did it. They realized it years later. We told them about Felipe Lopez for 7, 8 years. They realized it, you know, years later. So you got
it's
to
funny.
keep pushing on the story.
It's funny how that works. It's funny you said that, Alex, because they came to us with a script about the '85 team and beating the mighty Hoyers and all that kind of stuff. And when you read it the first time, you go, you know, and you looked at it and you just shook your head because it was a little hokey. You know, it was a little bit, you know, they actually brought in myself and Dwayne McClain to add some realism to the script. And Coach Mass couldn't figure out that when we spoke to him about it, we couldn't figure out that some stuff in the movie didn't really happen in real life, you know?
Yeah,
And he couldn't get past that. He was like, well, that's not how it went. I can't put that in there because that's not how it went.
right,
But you
right.
know, it was interesting though, going through the process. It never got made, but
I remember that being discussed. I think I remember hearing about you guys doing some things with that. And
yeah.
yeah,
But
no,
I was fascinated with the 30 for 30 on the Wolfpack because that team is compared to our team all the time. Which one is better upset? Which one? Matter of fact, we were at at an event, uh, and I say we, it was me, Pinckney, Gary McLean, and Dwight Wilbur. We're at a bar at the Marriott Hotel in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, and we hear this big booming voice, and we turn around and it's Derek Wittenberg, right? So I look over at him. I say, ours was better, Derek. You know that, right? So he starts arguing with this. I said, it's 4-against-1. So he starts laughing, and we came over. We have a great photo of the five of us, and had a lot of laughs. He's a great guy. So I was glad that it did well, and it was one of my favorite 30 for 30s to this day. And
It was
I
really
like
good.
all of them, but that's one of my favorite ones.
yeah.
How did you guys put that all together? Was that was that something that, you and Derek discussed and then said, well, we're gonna get everybody for a lunch or a dinner?
No, what happens is Derek says, I have this idea. Hey, I got this idea. We can do this film about Jimmy, me, the title, his life, coaches versus cancer, so forth. And I do what I always do. I walk straight into Jonathan Hawk's office and go, John, we have something here. We've had many of these conversations. Sometimes we have we have a few out there still that we're hoping one day may get made.
Right.
But and some won't. And the thing is that as soon as he heard it, he was like, yeah, this can be amazing. And he and Phil Armando, they're great filmmakers, and Jim Potteritz is also a part of that group, and they're just incredible filmmakers. And if you look at their history, I mean, Lakers versus Celtics, Best of Enemies, or there's so many things that they've done that they're just masterful storytellers. What was big for us, two things that were big for us in this film. One is Derek knew because he lived it, but I remember watching it. The game when they come back and V sees the team for the last time before he's going to succumb to cancer. So we knew that existed. We knew that was going to be amazing because it was visual. And then we got lucky. And that's the whole, like everything, right? Pick a game, pick anything. There is always some point in every great upset that something happens that's a little bit of a twist of fate that works, that is the key ingredient. And what we got lucky here was Jim Valvano did a speech at the $1 Million Roundtable. It was like this event, like a big sales event, right? Where they bring in the guest speaker and he entertains the best sales forces in the country in front of thousands of people. And we found the footage and we're able to use the footage. And what was amazing about it was it looks like he's performing at Carnegie Hall or on the late night show. And he's telling all the stories that you want him to tell in this film. So now we have him alive, and we have him alive as the V that the team knows and we know. And that is you. And what's great is it's not 2025 where there's a million piece of advertisement behind him. It's him in his suit, looking like a coach, all black silhouette beautifully. And he tells all the great stories of, how he wants to win a championship and how important it was. And, the dreams he had, and the whole story of like when Reagan called him after he won and all these types of things. And it's just, when we had those two pieces, we were like, we're good. Because the whole thing is always when you do this, the person's no longer with you. How can you tell this story? And that was, like you said, so what was key? Finding those two key, Derek is key, and then those two pieces. So it brings V the life to the viewer.
Well, those guys are, I mean, from talking to Derek, those guys are in real life pretty close, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing. The round table's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's in that film. Yeah.
It really was, and I got to meet a bunch. I played against Thurl Bailey, and he was unbelievable in that game too. And he was their go-to guy a lot of times during that time. And Ernie Myers was my year. So, we both knew each other from playing in the city and what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you what, that whole story is amazing. The whole Jim Val, and I was fortunate enough to be at the first ESPYs when he gave that speech, and I saw it live, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, man. It was rough. I mean, it was rough to see, but
even to this day, though, every time I hear it.
Yeah, I watch it. They just did something called The Speech. Did you see that? That was really good. It was all about leading up to that speech at the ESPYs. And what he had to go through and what he was doing and how he put it together and how he wasn't even going to go because he was so, and it was
his voice still really carried.
Yeah, he never lost his hair either, even with all the cancer and everything. He kept, and that was like a big deal for him too. I remember him talking about that. But So talk to us about the Fit Biomix, that you're involved with. Like we talked before the show a little bit, but one of the guys from St. John's kind of put this thing together, right?
So I'll give you the backstory. So there's a period where they start cutting scholarships right around 99, 2000, and the rosters are less. You now have to start trying to find not non-scholarship players to have enough for practice, right? Because it used to be you could have 15.
Right.
So I'm reading, all right, the wheelchair basketball games are being played. as you guys all know, which is,
Yeah, the wheelchair classic.
right, the
That was
top,
Pearl.
right, so the top seniors, so forth. And I look in and I see a name, Jonathan Scheinman. I don't know, maybe he had like 15 points. I'm like, I know this name. And then I look, and on my desk is the letter, you know, thousands of letters come in. I want to play at your school, kind of come, whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute. So this kid had written a letter to the school saying, I'm a basketball player in the public school system at LaGuardia High School, you know, first division, so forth, so forth. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So he must be pretty good because he's on the Manhattan wheelchair team, which is run by Riverside Church.
Right.
So, and that roster has got all the Rice kids and all the Martin Luther King, you know, it's a decent, so he had to be decent. And I remember saying, well, he wants to come here. This could be good. And I called Tom Kinchowski, right? And I say, you know, Tom, typical Tom, Alex, and he goes, so tell me about Jonathan Scheinman. Yeah, so I played in the way. He goes, Alex, he's not for St. John's. Like, I know, Tom. I'm asking you because he wrote me a letter, and he is probably should be going to Columbia based on the app on the scores I'm seeing this guy has with his SATs and everything in school, and he might be perfect for us. And he goes, well, in that case, now we're having a different conversation. And sure enough, you know, he got a science scholarship. He wanted to study science. He walked on the team. He was on our Big East championship team, our NT championship team. Um, he went on to NYU to study, get his PhD, which he says he's convinced he only got in because he played at St. John's. Because when they introduced the team, his class, they said, and our first Big East athlete in the history of the NYU medical program or something like that. So clearly he goes, I knew at that point that's why I got in. And then he goes to Harvard. And like all athletes, he's telling me he wants to coach, which I never understand. Every guy, when they're done, right, they want to coach or do something. I get it. They want it, right. That's fair. And I said to him, but you're a scientist. Why don't you invent something? You might own a team one day. You're like, I call him, hey, the guy's a scientist. He wants to coach. What do I tell him? And then he goes, I called you. And one day he called me up, called your bluff. I'm at Harvard. And he tells me what I want to do is I want to study the elite microbiome, the microbiome of elite physiology, because if I study the microbiome of super performing athletes, which he has determined mathematically is the 0.01% of the population, which if you go in the other direction is the same percentage of the people who live over the age of 100, right. 0.01% of the population. And his theory, his hypothesis is completely correct. So Fit Biomix is he put me down for the ride. So he studies this elite physiology, which produces super high performing bacteria, which creates the best probiotics possible, and then finds new strains that are not even on the market, which is a whole nother intellectual property. And these products help with not athletes, everyone. So basically it's saying, I'm going to take what makes you super healthy and give it to you and you know, to Chuck and Sonny and myself, right? So this helps people with better sleep, better digestion, fights fatigue, and so forth. Some people feel the effects much more stronger than others, but it's a basic daily capsule that is a preventative medicine tool that is as healthy as taking eating a yogurt or some other type of probiotic. And
Wow.
it was a brilliant idea. And you know, it's incredible again. So like the root of St. John's, right? Or the root of, I would say more so like whether it's Villanova, Syracuse, or St. John's, you know, college basketball, right?
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great story.
Oh, it took a while to explain it.
No, it's all good. I was doing some research on him, and he was, you know, I knew he was a walk on there. I knew he got in some time, you know, and good for him. That's great. And now that's available where? Anywhere?
Yeah, so it's available on our website, fitbiomix.com. It's available on Amazon. I'd love for you guys to try it and see what you think of
Yeah.
it. You guys let me know, you know, and maybe we can do something to set up something for the people who watch your show and get them a code or something so they can get it at a reduced rate. We can figure this all out. But the bottom
Cool.
line is, you know, be happy for you guys to try it and hear
That'd
what
be
you
great.
think. Yeah, because he runs the company more like a scientist. He's always the data. In other words, the more that people can give him feedback on the products, the more that he can figure out what to do in the future, because he has thousands of other strains to study that can help with maybe hand grip or you know, mental acuity and
Arthritis.
exactly.
That's wild. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We could set that up with you.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end here. I want to throw out a couple of names, maybe two or three. You give me your best story that you have on them. Fair enough? All right.
Try.
Meta World Peace, or Ronnie Artest, as he was known.
No, incredibly focused, and wonderfully knew what he wanted to do. Like I remember he wrote a list of everything he wanted to accomplish in when he was in college, and he set out and achieved it. And kudos to him. But really, really considerate, kind, thoughtful person that has always been around and there for all the people that have been a part of his life.
You mentioned this guy, and I think this guy was one of the most I wouldn't say he was underrated, but they don't talk about him the way they should, and that's Marcus Hatton. Talk about him.
Marcus Hatton was probably one of the greatest scorers in the history of St. John's and the history of the Big East.
I agree.
He led the Big East in scoring. Unbelievable player, but he'd be the first guy to come on and tell you that if he would have trained, now he's an incredible trainer and fitness coach, and if he had trained that way when he was in around college and after, he probably would have had he had a great professional career in Europe, but he would be the first to tell you that. But he's a great guy, always around the team as well, and a guy that you should have come on the show. He'll be great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
How about
and he's one of those.
Jason?
And he's they say there's like whatever. Some people, the list gets longer. How many different ways you can score on the court? He's one of those guys that can do all of them.
Okay, I'll give you two more. Jason Williams.
Instant comedy. It's one of the funniest guys I've ever met.
He's a funny dude. I've been around him a little bit. He is a funny dude, and he's doing some great things right now in Florida to help people.
Yeah, yeah, no, with Rebound, right?
Right. Yeah.
No, incredible. Another very, very thoughtful and considerate person.
Yeah,
and unbelievably funny.
Okay, and we'll end with this guy, Chris Mullin.
Great dude, great guy. You remind me of one quick story so him and Coach Carnesecca in a car, and we're going into a diner. And as we get in it, and Coach wants to grab something to eat, so we go into a diner somewhere in Long Island. And as we walk to sit at our table, someone says, "Whoa, it's Mullin and Coach, and I can't believe it." They go, "Can we take a picture?" So they get the phone out, they take the picture and the whole thing, and then Mullin turns and says, "That's for you. I don't want to see it on Facebook or Twitter. No posting, no Facebook, no tweets." And Coach Carnesecca then grabs both of us and goes, "Oh, Mo, what did you say?" Facebook, tweets. And then Mo and I look at each other and instantly know that this is going to be unbelievable, because we're about to explain social media to Coach Carnesecca. So it begins with, Coach, there's this thing called Facebook, and people post on it. They put their pictures, they show their family, they show what they're doing, when they're doing, and Coach is like this. Whoa. They're putting their whole life for everyone to see right there? No, that can't be. That's too stupid. No one puts themselves in Macy's window like that. No one. He goes, "They're getting paid."
That's a perfect. That's a Coach Carnesecca.
I totally heard his voice when you said
no one puts himself in Macy's window.
So he goes, no, that's friggin' stupid. He goes, "That can't be." He goes, "For free?" "Yeah, they do it for free, Coach." No. So they're sitting in Macy's window for free. He goes, "That's ridiculous." So Mo and I laugh and then we go, "No, Coach, it gets better. It gets better." "What do you mean?" He goes, I go, "Tell him, Mo." He goes, "So there's Twitter, right? And when you post Twitter, you do the same thing, but it's called a tweet." And then Coach goes, No. You know where I come from." He goes, "Alex and I come from the same area, and we know where you come from in Brooklyn." He goes, "Where we come from, you don't tweet. No one sings. Canaries can't sing, because if canaries sing, they can't fly." And then he tells us the story. You guys, I don't know if you know the story. The famous story is that the witness against the mob was on the 5th floor, completely guarded by all the police, right?
Yeah.
Everyone went to bed. The next morning, they found him on the pavement. And the headline on the papers was, "Canaries can sing, but they can't fly." And that was Coach's summation for Twitter.
Wow. That is awesome. And,
Now, that's something the Godfather
I can
missed. They missed
totally
that.
hear Coach saying that too. I mean, that's crazy. That's
I don't think Mo and I have not told that story too often. It may, or
yeah.
maybe not in this setting, at
Right,
least,
right.
where, you know, whatever. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
so whenever we see each other in person, when we do, at some point in time, we'll just look at each other and be like, Facebook, tweeting, canaries can sing, and that's it. And we just start laughing. And we knew it
That's
was like, you guys know those guys. It was, as soon as he asked that question, we looked and go, this is going to be memorable. It was
there's
unbelievable.
been moments like that with Mass. You can, it's basically the same guy, very similar, So
Right.
there's moments like that where I, looked at my teammates and go, oh, this isn't going to be good,
I'll give you one quick more Coach Carnesecca story. So, because I think Sonny will appreciate. I know, Chuck, you'll appreciate this as well. But so we're about to play a game, and Coach is putting in a new play, and Coach is going all out. And here's the thing: Coach used to always say about Malik Sealy, he goes, "I've never." He said maybe Rick Barry might be the only other one, and Chris Mullen. He said Malik knew the play on the court from every position. He could explain it from the point of view of every position, and he could explain it from the point of view of everyone that would defend the position. So Coach is putting in this new play, and you guys know Coach. So Coach, when he coached, would take the hearing aids out because the ball's bouncing on the court would reverberate, right? So Malik is saying to Coach, what's the play call? And he doesn't hear him. So now I rarely say anything. So I walk across the court because I realize what Malik's doing, and Coach doesn't hear him, right? And LaBabo's looking at me like he's putting his life in his own hands here. I go, Coach. And I don't know what it was, but he wheeled around and gave me this because he remembered, from 162. He's like, oh, what are you talking to me for? Like, I said it all in one gesture. And I go, Coach, Malik doesn't know the name of the play. And maybe because Coach went like this, he's in the moment, he goes, screw him. We'll call it horns because we're going to give him the horns whenever we
I
call
like
it.
it.
Exactly. Which my Aunt Lena apparently could take off of you or put on you through a phone. That's what's been told.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Usually you got to get the needle and the oil, and you got to remove the curse.
So he goes, we're going to give it the horn. And so Malik goes, okay, the horns. So now we play the Texas Longhorns in the NCAA tournament. And we're playing the game, and Buchanan's going like this, and Malik's going like this. So after the game, one of the reporters say, hey, we noticed that you were calling a play. Like, were you making fun of the Texas Longhorns? And Coach goes, what are you talking about? He goes, no, that's a gesture from where I grew up. And no one knew what he was talking about.
Nobody had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah, that's the vanilla South. They don't have some of that ethnicity.
Unbelievable.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Alex, for coming out and hanging with us.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That was great. I appreciate you having me on. It was great. Loved every minute, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
And I know from where you're at, it's late over there, so we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Here's to good gut health, baby.
Hang for a second. We'll give you a proper goodbye. Let me just wrap this up, and
sure.
We'll talk to you.
Okay.
So you've been listening to and watching the Big East Rewind with Sonny Sparrow and Chuck Everson. The Big East Rewind is produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. Check us out on the SiriusXM app, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.